Thanks, Marg. It is such a joy to be with you always, whether I'm here sitting with you or have the privilege of leading you. And a special thank you and acknowledgement to Evan for sponsoring today's practice in honor of Lynn's special birthday. So I want to begin by inviting you to soften your gaze or close your eyes just for a moment and allow yourself to take some deep breaths. Just allowing yourself to claim this place. This week's parasha makes many references to Hamakom, this place that God chooses for us, but we also choose our place. We also choose a place so that we can create a space for God to enter, a place where we can meet, a place for union and communion. And so in this moment, each one of us, and as a collective, we claim Hamakom, this place, not only to sit, but really to plug in and harness the energy that's here. So notice if in plugging in, you can grow your spine a bit taller, your crown lift a bit higher. Maybe your shoulders can relax. And take a moment to notice if you can feel both your strength, structure, but also your spaciousness and ease. In just such a way that you can embody this sacred arrival. This is an arrival of you to you and me to we, and each one of us to Hamakom, the ever-present one. Take another deep breath and then feel free to open your eyes if you've closed them. So the practice of meditation for me is many things, but among them is a dedicated space to remember that I am part of something that is so much bigger than the smallness of any one decision, any one moment or interaction that fill my days. And when I sit and fill myself not only with breath, but with intention and awareness, I'm able to kind of plug back in, just as Rabbi Mark said, to that quality of being that is always there alongside my doing nature. And Rabbi Mark shared a beautiful intention, I believe, by Rabbi Shefa Gold, a member of our beautiful chevra here on Monday, which really captured this essence, this sense that when we remember our source, there's a kind of ease that can come with that remembering. And when I feel that flow and I give myself even just a couple of minutes to plug back in, I sense that kind of belonging, that connection, that no matter my broken parts, my broken words, my broken deeds, that I'm unconditionally a child of God. So I want to talk about being children of God today. And this feels particularly resonant because we're in the waning days of the month of Av. Literally, this month is often referred to as Menachem Av, a comforting parent. You might translate it. Of course, it's referring to that comfort, those weeks of comfort that come after we commemorate the 9th of Av. But I want to invite us in our practice today to sit with the awareness that we are resting in the love of a comforting parent, fully loved, fully belonging, fully connected. And I want to make a special note because not all of us were blessed with parents, actual parents, who were particularly comforting or attuned to our sadness or our difficulty or whatever is unpleasant in life. And to know that as we sort of use our spiritual imagination and our practice in this way, it's also an opportunity to sort of reparent ourselves, perhaps in the ways in which we were not actually parented in real time. So generally, I'm going to share a text with you all today from this week's Parshat, Parshat Re'eh. And so Adi, if you can bring that up, that would be great. So generally, when we think about our relationship with God in the Torah, it's framed as a historical covenantal relationship, right? So God built a relationship with our ancestors, and God took them out of Egypt, and therefore we are loyal to God. But in this week's Parsha, we actually have a line which, instead of speaking about God's relationship with our parents, God says to us that God is our parent. And so here's the text. It says, "You are the children of the ever-present your God. Do not cut yourselves up and do not create a baldness in between your eyes for the dead. For you are a holy nation to the ever-present one, your God, and the ever-present one has chosen you to be God's treasured nation from among all of the other peoples upon the face of the earth." And just to be clear, what's being referenced here is that, in contrast to the mourning practices of other peoples who were surrounding us in ancient times, we, as the Jewish people, were forbidden from performing kind of these acts of bodily mortification as a response to the loss of a loved one. And what is particularly new in this iteration of this teaching, because it shows up in other places, is the reason. And the reason stated here is that, that we are God's children. And Rashi goes on to explain a little bit more, I think, to help us understand, and says that this means, do not cut yourselves up, because you are the children of the ever-present one, Hamakom, and you should look nice, not cut up or shaven. So my take on Rashi here is that the significance of being God's children is that we kind of need to look the part. We need to look like we're being well cared for. And this might seem a little bit odd, because what does God care actually? How we look, how we're dressed, or how healthy we appear. But I think it might be kind of an expression of the fact that we are an extension of God, God's self, that there is in fact no separation between us and God, and how we care for our bodies and how we sit with a kind of awareness that we are ever connected to God. That unconditional kind of parent-child relationship that has no escape clause is what is showing up in this moment. So in this teaching. So Adi, you can remove the text for now. So I want to just draw this kind of awareness out as we sit. And we can practice this unconditional love in our meditation so that hopefully we can practice it out in the world. We're building our capacity to be with whatever is arising as a loving parent, a parent that refuses to walk away, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. And we can sit and breathe in our bodies with a quality of dignity and honor and self-respect that I think God would want for all of us, God's children. So I invite you again to take your seat, making any necessary adjustments so that you can feel comfortable and alert, really claiming this place, Hamakom. And as you allow your eyes to close or soften your gaze, it may be helpful to locate yourself in this place, even with your eyes closed. So noticing where you are in space, ambient sound and temperature, sensation of air against the skin, the way in which your body is making contact with the earth. And you may check in with some habitual places that tend to aggregate emotion and energy, and just notice what's showing up. See if you can soften ever so slightly. And when you feel ready to create some stillness, feel yourself starting to receive the steadiness of the earth. Feel it underneath you and also moving through you. Allow it to lend some extra strength to the scaffolding of your spine. And with this structure, your shoulders may sense that they can relax. Maybe your heart can open just a little bit more. Your belly can soften. And I invite you to begin with what is called samavriti pranayama in yoga, or simply equal breathing. So breathing in and out in equal amounts, maybe to the count of 3 or 4 or 5. The important thing is that you make the breath even and steady. So each one of us at our own pace, our own rhythm. Equal breathing. And when you start to feel a presence of deep stillness and steadiness emerge from this breath pattern, I invite you to begin to rest your attention on what it feels like in the body to be a child of God. We're in a practice of remembering who we are, who we really are. Remembering in the body, remembering in the heart. So we'll continue in silence for the next 8 or 9 minutes, and I'll bring us together again with the sound of my voice. I invite you to bring some awareness into your hands, and you may want to leave them right where they are. Perhaps bring them together at your heart center or one hand over your heart. And into our hands and our hearts, we place gratitude for this practice, for this collective gathered here now, and those who will join us later. We give thanks for the opportunity to remember who we are and to whom we belong. May our remembrance carry us into the days ahead with a clearer sense of that holy spark that resides within each one of us, where we come from, and how we might use that spark to illuminate our path forward. May our remembrance bring us into deeper connection with ourselves, into more loving connection with each other and our source. I invite you to take a couple of soft and gentle breaths as we conclude our practice. And I wanted to end with an excerpt of a poem by Mary Oliver. What I loved in the beginning, I think, was mostly myself. Never mind that I had to, since somebody had to. And that was many years ago. Since then, I have gone out from my confinements, though with difficulty. I mean the ones that thought to rule my heart. I cast them out. I put them on the mush pile. They will be nourishment somehow. Everything is nourishment somehow or another. And I've become the child of the clouds and of hope. I've become the friend of the enemy, whoever that is. I've become older, and cherishing what I have learned, I have become younger. And what do I risk to tell you this, which is all I know? Love yourself, then forget it, then love the world. Thank you, everyone, for your beautiful presence and participation. I'm going to turn it back to Mark.
Thank you so much, Jenny, as always, so beautiful. Friends, we seal our practice, as is our custom. All of us seal it by either being a supportive presence for those in mourning or observing a yard site, or if you are grieving a loss in any way, you're invited to seal the practice by reciting the mourner's Kaddish. And if you like, you can indicate in the chat box the name or names of anyone who you are honoring or holding in your heart today, either now or after we've recited the Kaddish. And I invite you, those who are doing so, to join me in rising in body or in spirit. Yitgadal, Yitgadash Shemei Rabba, Nama Divra Kirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayechon B'chon, V'chaye T'vado B'Yisrael La'alam, V'gala V'chari V'chru, V'shmei Rabba Barak, Yam V'ameh Amayach, V'davar V'davar V'dvar
Amen.
Friends, thank you so much, as always, for joining us for practice today. Of course, we thank our teacher for today, Rabbi Jenny Solomon, And we thank our sponsor for today's practice, Evan Farber, and Evan's wife, Lynn. We have to thank you, Evan, for sponsoring our practice in honor of Lynn's 75th birthday. May it be a source of joy and blessing. Thanks for sharing the simcha with us today. As always, you're invited to stay on to explore the practice a little bit more and explore perhaps ways in which we might bring this practice into the rest of our day and the rest of our daily lives with Rabbi Jenny Solomon for a few minutes after 1 o'clock. Thanks to Adi Stein, as always, for holding our space with grace and with skill in ways that we so beautifully that we often don't even notice it. And for those of you who are leaving us, we hope you'll join us tomorrow and or on Friday when we sit into Shabbat each day. And just a quick reminder, if you haven't done so, to take a moment now to sign up for the Shofar Project so that you'll be sure to receive the framing essays, the first of which will be sent this Sunday on Rosh Chodesh Elul. So wishing those of you who are leaving a good and safe and healthy rest of the day. Hope to see you soon. For those who are staying, if you have a question for Jenny about the teaching today or about the practice, please put it in the chat box. I'll try to keep an eye on it. Jenny, thank you. That was great. And I think it gives us a good opportunity to unpack a little bit that you brought in, hamakom, and to explore a little bit about how it informs what we refer to as practice, which is really what we shorthand for mindfulness practice. For me, it is when I first learned, whenever that was, when I learned that, oh, that's a name for God in Jewish tradition, that was kind of one of those game-changing moments for me to say, like, wow, that's a fantastic name. There's it gets away from the gender issue. It gets away from the anthropomorphic issue of turning God into a person, and yet it's accessible and powerful and fluid and steady. So I just, as I like to do, I want to just kind of quickly recap what I heard the teaching as in regard to that verse from the Parsha about avoiding cutting our bodies, and about treating ourselves with kavod, with weightiness, with dignity, the inherent dignity that comes from awareness that we are children of God and children of hamakom. So I guess what I got was, oh yes, of course this is familiar idea that God is in the Jacob's exclamation, God was in this place and I didn't know this, uses that word in this makom. God was in this makom, which in mindfulness practice means like, oh, as long as I remember I'm in this place, I'm remembering that God is here too, right? And that has implications. So you taught us that has implications of, and because I'm in this place, and because God is in this place, and because there is a godly quality to me, there is inherent dignity, like you did today, and many teachers do, say, find a posture or position of dignity, right? The Hebrew there would be kavod, of recognizing your sacred core, right? So I just I'm not putting in a question form, just wanted to invite you to riff off of that if you'd like, because I think it's such a great and helpful concept.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. And as you just summarized it so beautifully, what I was hoping to convey, I find myself just saying like, amen, amen. Like, of course, what I'm teaching is also what I need to hear and be reminded of. So I too, when I learned the name for God, Hamakom, I think probably in the context of the traditional words that we use when someone is in mourning, we say Hamakom Yanachem Etchem. May Hamakom, the place, bring you comfort. And I thought that was so strange. Like at first, I couldn't even really understand what exactly that might be referring to. I see Sam Finesmith here in our practice. He's been incredibly helpful to me in understanding this, but I've really come to see that the practice itself is the place. It is that place where I can sort of find God in me and myself within God. And so I need only sort of plug in to this place to just create that possibility for connection, which is always there, but I can't seem to sustain that without pause throughout my life. So yes, I'm just really saying amen to what you shared. And all the ways in which it defies, gender and all the anthropomorphism and our other kinds of associations. And then the other piece, which is about holding ourselves in dignity. And, I purposefully didn't get into the whole thing around tattoos, although I see that in the comments.
It's coming up. That's going to be,
yes.
I don't think we can avoid that. I think we're going to have to deal with that.
And I actually have to say, first of all, no judgment around those with tattoos. I see myself now as an extreme minority, as somebody who doesn't have a tattoo. I was had the gift of traveling this summer to other places and did a bunch of hiking. I felt like I was the only person I could find who was not inked in some way. So putting aside sort of the most literal meaning, I think the ikar, the heart, the essence of the text is saying that when we experience loss, when we're grieving, when we feel sorrow, when we feel pain, I think there is actually a human urge to mark that on our bodies in some way. To remember. I mean, I see people's tattoos and they'll often I think I've never asked, but I think that sometimes what the ink is like something they want to be reminded of regularly, so much so that they see it on their skin, they feel it in their bodies. And so, withholding judgment for those who choose to do it in that way, I think that my practice really functions in a way to serve as that embodied reminder without actually inflicting my flesh, afflicting my flesh in that way. And so I feel very grateful for that.
It's powerful because, again, without any judgment for those who do have tattoos or any other, body markings, that Jewish tradition, I think it's worth noting, does have, for example, cutting as part of what you just, what we're just talking about. But in the case of mourning, grief, it's kriya, it's cutting the garment, not cutting one's body. The context of the original passage, I take it, is in the context of an anti-idolatrous warning to the Israelites not to imitate the ways of natives who mourn by cutting or impacting their body in that way. But as you said, also that the compassionate response to somebody who is in mourning makes use of the word hamakom. That's so great. May hamakom be compassionate towards you. Have compassion upon you. That's just it's a beautiful, for people who are not aware of that. It's just a beautiful tradition in Judaism. And I think also, I don't know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think hamakom is used as a name of God in the Bible itself, in the Tanakh, but I think it's a rabbinic innovation, and then it takes on its own energy also in the medieval poetry too. That God is not of this place. That it's a paradox, right? That God is not a place or of a place, which is a very important motif in Judaism. There's no physical location that is sanctified in that way. Although I guess we've got a problem, with our Temple Mount, etc. In that regard, there is that inclination to try to pinpoint a spot or a makom, but we have a powerful anti-idolatry sense of don't make a place God or synonymous with God. And yet every place, there's no place devoid of God. And each place, so that every place where we are, God is present. If we can bring our awareness to that, it's really just so powerful. Yeah, there was a question. I don't know if you're keeping an eye on the questions. Oh, piercings. Let's see, anthropomorphism. Oh, there's a good question here. Okay. So a hamacom, which is not an anthropomorphic, a non-anthropomorphic descriptor of God. I guess what I would say about, what's wrong with anthropomorphic images? I love the fact that we've got so many images, some of which are not anthropomorphic and some of which are anthropomorphic, right? Which enables us to relate, to build a relationship, because all we know is relationship through in that way, but also transcends that in some way. Yeah. See, many Jewish people with pierced ears, many other piercings are not okay. How do we justify ear piercings based on this text? I already had pierced ears when I converted to Judaism. Rabbi, what do you want to say about that? Anything?
We live in these bodies. I think it's just a reminder that that our bodies and our spirituality are not disconnected, and that an attempt to sort of experience our spirituality without the body is diminished in some way. It's just such a natural thing. As I was reading these, I was just remembering back my first really serious boyfriend in college he actually had like an intentional keloid scar on his arm in the shape of a Greek letter. It was part of his fraternal brotherhood ritual. So far be it from me to cast any judgment on that, but I remember just being really surprised by that. And what I came to see again is not so much that I would want to do that or my children, but that it is just really natural to want to experience connection to others and to God in our bodies. And how meditation can serve in that way. And as you mentioned with that beautiful example of Kriya, right? When somebody we love dies, we feel our hearts torn apart. And we want to externalize that sense of being torn. And so the ribbon or the clothing becomes a way to feel on our bodies and communicate to other people that sense of connection and disconnection. So really just calling attention to the fact that that bridge is available to us in our meditation practice without doing anything harmful or painful, hopefully, but just sitting with our own sense of godliness in this moment, in this place, wherever that is.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Jenny. And also, I think one of the things I most appreciate about your teaching is bringing awareness to, using embodied practice and bringing combining awareness with awareness of our physical incarnation as a vessel for the divine, and without mistaking the physical as the divine itself, right? And that's one of the great gifts, I think, of the mindfulness practice, is not at all to deny the body or to deny this world, but actually to infuse this world wherever we go, every place, and every experience, and every person, and our bodies ourselves, which is in keeping with the rabbinic tradition also of understanding our bodies as temples, right? As sacred temples that are entrusted to us to guard and to keep and to preserve and to honor, as you taught us so beautifully today. Oh yeah, some good. I was wondering if anybody would bring in an Olympic reference here. I'll just say that, as we witness the Olympics, right? And we are wonder what human bodies are capable of, and also of their limits, right? It's a great opportunity not to worship the body, but to have the body, to remember the wonderment of the body.
Yeah.
And maybe we bring that to our Olympic viewing too. I think we should end with the Olympic fanfare, but okay, more on that soon. Okay, Jenny, as always, beautiful. So tomorrow, friends, hope to join us. We'll be led by Cantor Julie Newman tomorrow. And I'm very excited that on Friday, we'll be led by a new teacher to our roster, Kimi Duenas, a young and wonderful mindfulness teacher will be leading us for the first time, and hope you can join us to sit into Shabbat with Kimi Duenas this Friday. And just one last reminder, sign up for the Shofar Project. Okay, everyone, be safe and well. See you tomorrow, and many blessings to everyone.